Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and to our ongoing study in the book of James. And we're going to take a look at, we're going to continue in chapter 1. We're going to take a look at verses 7 through 12. And it's going to be all about the lordship of Christ, which is a lordship of the judgment of Christ, the ongoing judgment. Let's go to block 1. We'll look at the text. Let not the wavering man think he shall receive anything from the Lord, because double-mindedness results in being unstable. In judgment, the brother of low degree shall be exalted. Also in judgment, the brother who has wealth shall be made low, because that which is finite, like the flower of the grass, passes away. For as soon as the sun is risen, the finite flower withers, and so also shall it be for the rich man, who will fade in his temporal ways. However, blessed are those who endure temptation, for when tried in judgment, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to all those who genuinely love him. Okay, we're going to teaching from James on the ongoing, current, everyday judgment of the lordship of Christ. Let's go to block 2 and we'll get into this detail because it gives us 2 examples in this passage. All of creation is under the lordship of Christ and his judgment of approval. We're going to go verse 12, then verse 9, then verse 10. Verse 12, for when he is tried, kinemai, dokimas, and Christou, having been tried in the judgment of Christ's approval. Dokimas is Strong's number 1384, and it means a judgment concerning a state of being proven. Now the first judgment example, verse 9, is concerning Adelphas Tapainas, the brother of humble nature, and Hupsai Autu will be exalted in judgment. Humility will be judged and result in being exalted in that judgment. The second judgment example is verse 10. But the rich man shall be judged and made low. Plausias, those who abound in the wealth of this world, those who live for acquiring the wealth of this world, ante tapainoesis autu, shall be judged as a person humiliated, and he will be parekamai. He shall be dismissed and pass away. Dismissed and pass away. So in this passage, James tells us that the Lord is currently exercising his lordship in the activity of judgment, the activity of guiding reality to being a state of being proven, to guide reality into becoming a state of being proven. And the same truth holds true throughout all of Paul and all of James. Humility will be result in the judgment of being exalted. Those who are humble shall be exalted in judgment. Those who live for the acquisition of wealth in this world shall be judged as being made low, being made a person humiliated. And those who live for their own ego will be dismissed by the Lord, and they will pass away. They will reap what sin reaps, and that is spiritual death. They will reap spiritual death. They will pass away. So James gives us his teaching that not final judgment, but judgment as ongoing lordship takes place all the time. Christ has been exalted to the right hand of the Father, which is the place of judgment, and judgment is ongoing. It is ongoing. Humility will be exalted. Egoism will be judged against. Egoism will be a judgment that results in spiritual death, in spiritual passing away. So humility versus egoism. Humility will result in being exalted within the kingdom. Egoism will result in a judgment of spiritual passing away, spiritual death. And James summarizes the lordship of Christ in these two judgments. In these two judgments, the lordship of Christ is seeking to establish a reality within a state of being proven. Because the eschaton is moving toward that goal of being a reality that will exist in a state of being proven through the lordship of Christ. The eschaton will be that time, that future time, when all of creation will reach being fully interpenetrated by the doxa glory of God, and it will exist in a state of being eschatologically proven through the lordship of Christ. This is what James is teaching us. We've had teachings in the past from Paul in the same direction, but James tells us that the goal of lordship is to bring all of reality, all of humanity, to a state of being proven as accepted for the eschaton, proven to being a part of the eschatological kingdom. Egoism will not be a part of the eschatological kingdom. Humility will result in those who are last, they will become first. Those of a humble nature will be exalted. They will reap life eternal. Those who live for egoism, for the acquisition of this worldly wealth, will be those who result in spiritual death, spiritual passing away. Let's move on to block 3, and we're going to look at the International Greek Exegetical Commentary by P.H. Davids. And we're going to look at chapter 1, verse 8. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. The Greek is interesting here because it's not double-minded, it's double-souled in the Greek. Dipsychos. Aner dipsychos. A double-souled man. That's the literal translation. It's a concept that James borrowed from ancient Jewish theology. That's where he got it. That is not surprising because James was educated to the level of qualifying for the role of high priest. He had that much of an education. But he is and was very familiar with the Jewish theology of the first century. And this term comes from the Judaic faith and the theology of the Judaic faith. And the term is aner dai psychos, a double-souled man, is akata status. A double-souled man is always restless and is unrestrainable. In the Old Testament, a person was to love God with an undivided heart. Deuteronomy 6:5, love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, an undivided soul, and with all your might. Psychos type person is one whose allegiance to God is less than total. Less than total. That person will vacillate in all of his ethical conduct. In fact, that term, akatastatus, in later theology, that was used to describe demonic activity. So when we say a negative term, this is an extremely negative term in first century Jewish theology. This entire teaching from James, who obviously was a profound Judaic theologian, educated to the level of qualifying to be a high priest. He wasn't appointed to be a high priest, but he did have the background that qualified him for that position. He was very familiar with ancient first century Judaic theology. And this teaching comes from ancient first century Judaic theology. It's a teaching on the negativity of being aner dai psychos, a double-souled person. As far back as Deuteronomy, the Judaic believers were taught never to be double-souled, never be double-hearted, never be a divided person, but be fully dedicated to God. Love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength or all your might. A dipsychos person is a divided person. They are not fully in allegiance to God. Akatastatus. Later, this was described as demonic activity, evil activity. Being that kind of person is a person who is divided and ultimately against God, against the lordship of Christ. So this is the Judaic theology that leads into that breakdown of judgment and lordship in Block 2. Block 3 gives us the theological background to what James teaches us in Block 2 on the lordship judgment of Christ. In the background, you have the ancient Jewish theology of aner dai psychos, aner dai psychos, a double-minded person, a double-souled person is not in full alignment with God and the purpose of the kingdom. A double-souled person is not fully aligned with the lordship of Christ. A double-souled person is actually one who is split, being partially dedicated to God, but partially dedicated to the acquisition of this worldly wealth, this worldly recognition, this worldly egoism. You cannot be of the kingdom and of the world. You're either for the kingdom or you're for the world, says James. Do not be, the imperative is, never fall into the sin of being aner dipsychos. Never fall into the evil of being a double-souled man. The English translation says double-minded, but the Greek says a double-souled man is unstable in all his ways. A split soul, when the allegiance of the soul is split and divided between egoism and God, it results in instability. It results in failure. It results in ultimately becoming fallen under the judgment of spiritual passing away in block 2, ultimately resulting in spiritual death. So block 3 gives us the Judaic theological background to the explanation of the lordship and judgment of Christ in block 2. How do we understand judgment and lordship of Christ? James says it's divided. 2 examples is all you need. You got the example of humility. A humble person will be exalted in judgment, and you've got the example of egoism, and that person will be judged as one to be dismissed and one to pass away in spiritual death. The background behind this teaching of James is the ancient Jewish theology on the term aner dipsychos. Beware of becoming a double-souled person. Beware of becoming a double-souled man. Aner dipsychos. If you are divided in your soul, not fully dedicated to God's kingdom, not fully dedicated to the lordship of Christ, then you will fall under the judgment against those of egoism in block 2, note 3. You will be judged as a person humiliated, made low, to be dismissed, and to pass away in spiritual death. The wages of sin is spiritual death. So James gives us a breakdown of the lordship of Christ as a lordship of ongoing judgment. And in the background, this ongoing judgment, this ongoing lordship, is founded on a warning from ancient Jewish theology that James was very familiar with, having been educated to the level of a high priest. Beware, a aner dipsychos is unstable in all his ways. A double-souled man is unstable in all of his ways. Beware of becoming a dipsychos individual. Beware, never let yourself fall into the sin of being double-souled. And then out of that warning, out of that backdrop, James tells us the lordship of Christ is a lordship of judgment. Dokimos, block 2, note 1. Dokimos. Strong's number 1384. Christ is judging reality now in his lordship in order to bring it eschatologically to that final state of being proven. All of reality, all of humanity must be brought to that eschatological goal of being in a state of being proven. Dokimos. Strong's number 1384. Google it, take a look at it, look it up. It is a Strong's number. It is a text taken, it's a concept within the New Testament. Dokimos. Strong's number 1384. Christ in his lordship is exercising a lordship of judgment in order to bring all of creation, all of humanity, to a point of the eschatological state of being proven. The eschaton will result in a reality of all creation being in a state of being proven. That wraps up chapter 1, 7 through 12. Next time we go 13 through 17 next time.